systems go. Clear for liftoff. What is going on, SHIPIT Nation? We are back here Tuesday afternoon, morning. I'll consider it morning still. We're back. We got NBA Cup 8 games tonight with my man Rio. We'll bring you in here right away, man. Hopefully you're as excited as I am because we've had a couple of good nights, specifically in the NBA Discord, kind of sharing the wealth between a bunch of different members and ourselves. And we got NBA Cup tonight. So like I said, hopefully you're as excited as I am.
Oh, yeah, I'm stoked. This is last year, the NBA Cup was super fun and provided some of the best moments of the NBA last year. We had that crazy run with Tyrese Halliburton. Obviously, the Lakers took it very seriously and took it down. But, yeah, there's some storylines for sure with how things are going to shake out tonight. You could definitely see some teams kind of mailing it in and not caring too much, like the team on the first game of the slate. But there's definitely going to be some teams that take this very seriously. And, yeah, I'm excited to watch it. This bringing out the colorful courts, which were cool to see last year.
Absolutely, yeah. That was a fun time last year, and I'm excited for a couple of narratives headlining. We have Clay back in Golden State. I'm excited to kind of break down that one. I think he's too cheap, but that's a couple of games away. Before we dive right into the slate, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. If I could find the correct shot here. NBA 15. Everybody needs to go sign up, man. We preach it on every show, but it's really happening. We're having a great time, specifically in the NBA chat. It's been awesome to see, the same faces that you see consistently, whether it's, in the morning pre-slate up to lock or even the NBA late night chats. Everybody that's been in there has, had a quality start to the season. If not, we're talking through processes, what mistakes might have been, and how we can change those with such a long NBA season. Shout out the other sports. We're in full swing of everything. MMA, we've had shippers in multiple weeks, whether it's you or Hoop or Title or the people in Discord, as well as NHL. That stays hot. I read through NHL the other day, and Nate's pointed it out. His top stack had 6 goals in the first period. But many sports here and a ton of people to bounce ideas off of. But let's get back to NBA. Like I said, 8 games. So let's get the correct overlay first. Mistake is mine. 8 games today. We're starting off hot with a game that we can see go multiple ways. Hawks at Celtics, 15, 14 and a half, whatever it may be, in favor of Boston with the 225 total. I'll let you dive right into what could be a very interesting game on the slate.
Yeah, it's nice that we got the news. Regardless, we would have had the news on the Hawks side, but we got it last night with Trae Young and DeAndre Hunter being rolled out. So a couple ways that they could go with the starting lineup. I kind of think that it makes the most sense just to get Keaton Wallace out there because they'll need some extra ball handling, but there is a chance that it's a Garrison Matthews or a David Roddy type of play. They're pretty comfortable running with Jalen Johnson as the point guard for this team. I mention it a lot whenever I write him up in the slate plan, but he's second in the league in touches. So they're kind of using him in like the Jokic type role. They're going to be running the offense through him while he's out there and Trae is not out there. But regardless, we should see a really big bump in minutes for a guy like Keaton Wallace, and he's only 3.2K, so he would look like a really strong value. On the Celtics side, do have a couple of pretty big questionable tags as well with Jason Tatum and Al Horford being rolled out. I do expect one of them to sit. I think that Horford is probably more likely. They play on a back-to-back tomorrow, so they play Brooklyn tomorrow. I think that you can pretty comfortably say that they could win this game against Atlanta without those guys, but I do think that Horford is probably likely to sit tonight and play tomorrow. Tatum's probably going to play. He's very durable. He did roll up his ankle on that one play with Giannis kind of going underneath him on which should be called a flagrant, but it wasn't called a foul at all. But yeah, he's got the ankle injury. Should be good to go, I would imagine, but probably not expecting the normal minute ceiling we get out of him. This is a 15-point spread. really good chance that the Celtics just take it to them here. I could definitely see the Hawks struggling to score. But either way, there is some value on the Atlanta side. I think the two main guys you're looking to here are Jalen Johnson, for sure. I kind of mentioned the touches are going to creep up a ton. Very tough matchup, but he sees a huge usage rate bump this season with Trey off the court. 36% usage rate, 30% assist percentage, 22% rebounding rate. I mean, those are all numbers kind of lining up with somebody that could get a triple-double. But you obviously need the game to remain close. If it is close, we're probably seeing 36 to 38 minutes out of him, and he averages 1.53 fantasy points per minute with Trey off the court this season. So should be a good spot for him to put up a big score, but very tough matchup. Boston is top 7 DVP versus power forwards, blowout risk concern. And then after him, I really am just looking at Keaton Wallace. I'm kind of gonna just skip down. I mean, you could definitely make a case for like Dyson Daniels, Reece Shea. That's probably it in a close game. But I just think that on this big of a slate, we're going to get there's big injury news later as well. So probably not worth investing too much of your salary into this game. I think it's just Jalen Johnson and Keaton Wallace. And then on the Boston side, if they're fully healthy, I think it's kind of easy to get away from that. I think this could be a game where the Celtics win it pretty easily, but nobody really stands out from a fantasy perspective. They're all in really good spots, though. Tatum has a great matchup, but I do have a little bit of concern that the minutes might not be there. Jaylen Brown has a really good matchup. He's been shooting the ball very poorly over the last 4 games. Only made 2 of his last 26 three-pointers over the last 4 games, but Atlanta, one of the worst three-point defenses in the league, and this should be a pretty good spot for him to regress positively. But I don't think that I would get to him if Tatum was in. Derek White put it to the Hawks last game, put up 44 DK points, but that was with Jaylen Brown out. Definitely would need one of Tatum, or you would need Tatum to sit for me to get to Derek White at 7.2K. Drew Holiday is interesting because he's only 5.3K in a great matchup. But, yeah, I could kind of see – like Peyton Pritchard is a very interesting low-owned play because he's only 5.1K. If you remember last year, the rule for like the tiebreakers in the in-season tournament was point differential. So this could be a time where we just see Peyton Pritchard get a lot of run in the fourth quarter and then just kind of let him run loose and put up a ton of points. The appeal with Pritchard is in these blowouts, you know that he's going to be out there, but hasn't really been the case that much this year because he's a very valuable piece to this team. As just like a main rotation guy, you see his minutes come way up like pretty consistently in the mid-20s now. But this could be a spot where I do see his minutes get increased a little bit. So I think Pritchard might be my favorite play on the Boston side.
I love that. No, yeah. Pritchard at 5-1. I mean, whether I believe he's in play, whether or not Tatum is in or out, like you said. You broke down the game wonderfully. I guess what my question would be, if we don't see it in chat, I'll get to the 2 things I missed before we get to the next game. But if you were game stacking this game, I would assume, obviously Wallace and Jalen Johnson. But if you were in a decision between a Dyson Daniels and a Reece Shea at 55 and 6,000, would you have a lean either way on either one of those guys?
Yeah, I would probably go Daniels just because I think that it's more likely he has a bigger offensive role. They're going to need some ball handling when Jalen Johnson's not out there, and I kind of think it would be Daniels and Keaton Wallace. I think that he's going to get a good amount of, I see him low double-digit ownership right now, but the only thing I'll say about that is he's had 17 steals over the last 3 games. So it's just an insane run he's on. And
I think he had 7 in one game, right?
He had 7 against Detroit and 6 against Chicago. But those are 2 very turnover-prone teams. I believe they're towards the top of the league in turnover percentage, whereas the Celtics are very good. They're very disciplined, so they're not going to turn the ball over a lot. So I'm not banking on a big steal game from a guy like Daniels. But I do think that the ball handling is going to increase for him. It is interesting though, because Reece Shea is only going to be 2% owned, and he does have that 50, 60 point ceiling. We've seen it put up 6 threes, and the Celtics are a little bit more vulnerable to 3-point shooters. But yeah, I'd probably still lean Dyson Daniels.
I love that. Good. Before we get to the next game, I left out 2 things that were my mistake as a host here. One, next game, I got injuries. So Rio, I can't have you doing injuries and the game, so I got to help you out a little bit. 2, I didn't mention anybody in chat. So shout out to everybody in chat. We got Go Collect, Wins a Lot, Nate, Jordan, Mark, Philly Fan, Little Neck, Evan, William, Michael Ortiz, Wardo, Charlie. I mean, these are the usual suspects. We appreciate the support. Max, Shannon, JP Knox, Jasmine, Little Neck, Marquee Sports. If I missed you, sorry, Jeff. We appreciate this support. Everybody stay in chat. Everybody hit the thumbs up. Maybe throw out a hot take for the slate in the comments, help the YouTube algorithm. But we obviously love the consistent support that everybody shows us. So we thank you for that. Moving on, Heat and Pistons. Looks like a 1-point spread and a 214 total. I have ugliest game on the slate on my notes, but what are you thinking before we dive in? We do have injuries of Jimmy Butler out. Isaiah Stewart's going to be probable, and Duren is questionable. I think those are the 3 main injuries on the slate. But what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I mean, it's not enough that if Duren were to be ruled out, that it changes the outlook of the Pistons side. You're going to get Isaiah Stewart in the starting lineup, but he won't be that great of a value. It is a tough matchup, although the Heat have been one of the worst teams against centers this season, but a little lopsided. When you go up against a guy like Jokic, he's going to be weighting that DVP number one way. So, yeah, I'm not really looking to this game a lot. It's a very gross game. 2 of the slowest paced teams in the league. And both teams are playing pretty solid defensively. Heat are kind of bad versus three-point shooters. So if you want to go to like a Malik Beasley, I wouldn't mind that. He has been playing a lot of minutes and shooting the ball really well, going to be really low owned. But that's just like a 150 lineup type of thing, not single entry. You can always get to Cade. He's had 3 straight triple doubles before busting that streak last week, but he still put up 50 DK points. So he's starting to find that ceiling that is worthy of somebody at this price tag. Those are really the only 2 guys I'm looking to on Detroit. And then Miami, I like the role for Tyler Hero a lot now with Jimmy Butler out. He sees a 2% usage rate increase with Jimmy off the court, averaging nearly 48 DK points per 36. Neutral matchup DVP-wise versus the Pistons, pretty solid against shooting guards, but a little bit worse. Are the league average versus point guards and slightly below average matchup for shooting guards, but Pistons are allowing the 7th most pick-and-roll ball handler points per game. That's definitely right inside the Hero's wheelhouse, so he would definitely be an option for me on this side, and I'm not really looking to get to like Bam or Rozier right now. Bam's going to project pretty well just because Butler is out, but Pistons have been one of the better rim defenses this season, so I don't really want to go to him. I think there's better, higher upside options at that price tag, and definitely at the center position. It's a high value position. Don't really want to waste it on a guy like Bam tonight.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're going to keep going through this slate and see a lot of center options. For me personally, the first thing I thought about 3 or 4 games in was a double center night, so I love that. Just to reiterate, I mean, Cade at sub 9K. He's showing that upside. So I really like that as a play. Tobias Harris and Jaden Ivey, both above 6K now. I think it's a little bit too much. We saw Tobias down at 5,800 and kind of be not super chalk, but was certainly chalky and play well. But like I said, personally, outside of what you mentioned, this is one of my least favorite games on the slate. Moving on, Hornets at Magic. Magic 8.5-point favorites at a 212.5 total. Richards, Williams, Bridges all out. Trey Man is questionable. Caleb Martin's questionable. And then Wendell and Pablo are out. At least that's what it was a couple minutes before the show. I'm not sure if anything changed. But this is an interesting game for me, just as we highlight guys like LaMelo and Goga. But love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, Charlotte was a team that we really looked to attack a lot last year. A little bit different this year. They're not really playing great defensively, but they're not playing bad. Playing very slow-paced basketball right now, which is kind of interesting. You would think that with a guy like LaMelo out there, they want to get up and down the court, but hasn't really been the case. They're much more of a half-court team, and you definitely not good from a game environment standpoint. Kind of the Magic are the same. Both these teams are on the slower side of things, so not the best game environment, but the injury situation on both sides does kind of make it a little bit more appealing. Yeah, I think that if like Cody Martin were to be out and if Trey Man were to be out, that would make somebody like Seth Curry an option at 3.2K. It's pretty gross because you're just kind of hoping he makes like 3 to 5 3-pointers because he doesn't really do much else. but you don't need a ton at 3.2K. I like the shooting guard position a lot tonight, so I probably would prefer to spend down at a different position. But he would definitely be in play. I wouldn't fault anybody for going there. LaMelo definitely the best option on the Charlotte side, though. 9.6K, really good. He arguably has one of the best roles in the league, outside of a guy like Jokic or like Cade is up there. But he has a near 37% usage rate, 35% assist percentage, over 7 minutes of touch time, which are all towards the top half of the league. A little bit of a tougher matchup going up against Jalen Suggs, but the Magic, also the Magic are fourth best defensive team against three-point shooters, but they're slightly below average in DVP versus point guards. So it's like kind of equals out as being a neutral matchup for LaMelo, but he's got the triple-double upside. I don't know how serious Charlotte's going to take. I mean, this, like the in-season tournament would probably be like the Super Bowl for a team like Charlotte if they won it or even like made it out of their group. So maybe they take it seriously, but I don't know. There's a lot of really good guard plays tonight that I'll probably end up being underweight on LaMelo or maybe around the field in 150. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm not super excited about the Charlotte side. I think that people will probably go to Brandon Miller tonight, and for a good reason. He really popped off in a big way 2 games ago against Indy, who was a very good three-point defense, put up 7 threes in that one. The rebounding is starting to come up a little bit. Assists look a lot better. But I don't think I'm going to go there. And then the Orlando side, I mean, Franz like still has upside, but he's expensive. He kind of reminds me of like Jimmy Butler, Brandon Ingram a little bit, where he always projects really well, but I feel like his projection is like almost his ceiling. Like he hasn't put up a GPP worthy score all season long. Granted, they haven't really needed him for heavy minutes. He put up 41 against Washington, but only played 29 minutes. The Magic really need to get some wins while Paulo is injured or is out. So could see this being a spot where we see some elevated minutes from like Franz and Suggs and Goga. So if you want to go there, I would not argue against it, but he is expensive, and I'm probably just looking to spend down at small forward, power forward. Same thing for Suggs, a little bit too expensive for me, but I do like Goga here at 5.3K up against a pretty weak rim defense, a team that's going to be, trotting out Taj Gibson and then like Moussa Diabate for some minutes. I mean, Moussa Diabate looked like a decent defender, but I don't know. Goga has been pretty solid as a starter this season, but 31 plus DK points in 4 straight games that he started, going up against the 3rd worst rim defense in the league. So I think he's a pretty strong value. Yeah, that's really all I'm looking to. I like Goga the most in this game. I think Franz is in play, and I think LaMelo and Miller are in play a little bit.
Yeah, no, Goga's had 6 exclamation points and 2 stars on my notes. So 5,300 is just a little too cheap. Most likely we'll find my core tonight, if we're being honest, as of right now, if the slate started. Just to touch on a few more things, Brandon Miller was on my list to start. His price is a little too high, and he gets a pretty tough, defensive team where I think we're still going to get some ownership on him just because of the amount of shots that he's going to take. But LaMelo looks like he's eating them all. What is it, 30 and 29 in back-to-back games as shot attempts go? So you drilled the Hornets side. I'm intrigued a little bit. I'm making 3 lineups tonight. I'm intrigued a little bit with a little game stack here, especially if we get Cody Martin, my apologies earlier, and Trey Mann out. Then it really opens things up. I think, Goga obviously with LaMelo Ball, and, I hate to say it, but, KCP at 4,100, he's been playing solid. And if we can see a touch of uptick in minutes, if we don't have extreme value coming up or anything close to lock, I don't mind that, but couldn't agree more on the Franz take as we're moving on to the next game. Knicks and Sixers. Let me scoot this down so everybody can take a peek. Knicks and Sixers 3-point spread looks like, what is that? 212 and a half here. Very interesting here. Maxey out, obviously. Precious and Mitch Robinson are still out. McBride got the questionable tag. I haven't seen an update on him yet, as well as campaign. Really interesting to see or hear your thoughts regarding if Deuce is out tonight.
Yeah, I don't know too much about the injury for him. I probably would expect him to play through it, but campaign's been out for a bit. Not sure how much that really would change the rotation, he would probably slot back in over Tyler Kolek, who's been kind of seeing those backup guard minutes. But yeah, I mean, if McBride is out, that's a good amount, 25, 27 minutes that are going to be vacated and probably just eaten up by the starters. And yeah, I mean, these guys are already playing a ton of minutes, so you could see like a Josh Hart and Mikal Bridges and OG getting up to like 41, 42 minutes versus like 38, which would make them a lot more interesting. But as it stands right now, this is a game I have very little to no interest in. I think you could always make a case for Cat. I think that the bull case for Cat is that I don't know if he'll be high owned. He's probably like a 9+ K player right now, just kind of, I wouldn't say he's the alpha. It's still definitely Brunson, but it's a 1A, 1B type situation. He's shown huge ceiling double-doubles in almost every game this season. But he's also not going to have to defend Embiid. I would imagine that they put OG and Anunoby on him, which is what they did last year in the playoffs. And that would definitely improve his outlook because they can just kind of play him off ball. He can get those, eat up those rebounds, and he wouldn't have to get into any foul risk because he'd probably be guarding a guy like Caleb Martin on the three-point line, and you just kind of let him shoot all day. So yeah, I think Cat makes some sense in tournaments, but I don't think that he would make my player pool as a single entry play tonight. And then yeah, kind of the same case for like Josh Hart is just he does a little bit of everything, and he could randomly put up a triple-double or a double-double and pay off the price tag. 6.8K looks pretty good for him. And I'm not really looking to get to Bridges or OG tonight. OG definitely has a lot of foul risk, and then Brunson matchup is very tough, and he's not cheap. Very very valuable position to at point guard, where he's priced around guys like Booker and Ant Edwards and Steph. So I will X him out tonight, and then the Sixers are pretty much the entire team will be X'd out for me. You can make the case for Jared McCain because he's been playing really well, but I just don't like. He took 17 and 18 shots the last 2 games. He's not going to do that while Embiid is out there. So not looking to get to any of these Sixers guys, and really just Hart and Cat for me on the Knicks side.
Yeah, no, and Cat obviously in your rankings higher than Hart, I would assume, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, the only person I had highlighted here, was McCain at 4,300. He's like you said, he took a ton of shots, but getting 31 minutes, 4,300. If Embiid comes back and he doesn't play, I would assume he plays 25 minutes, 24 minutes, somewhere in that range, coming off the time that he's missed. I don't know if he eats that many shot attempts if he continues to chuck, but that's an interesting kind of decision point for myself as we break down the slates. Raptors and Bucks, 8.5-point spread I have here on in the notebook, 225.5. This is going to be kind of the storyline of the slate here with Dame out, Brown, Barnes, Olynyk obviously out quickly with the Q tag. I think it was a sprained elbow. I heard. I'm curious to see. I would assume. How do you play with a sprained elbow or even one that's a little banged up? So this game obviously offers Giannis, opportunity, which will be very popular. But I think it opens up some interesting avenues for the Raptors. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to like the spot. Well, I love the spot for quickly. We've kind of been hammering home the point to attack the Bucks with guards all season long. It's kind of a little bit like they're not as bad now with having a guy like Andre Jackson in the starting lineup, but yeah, I did like quickly. But I mean, right now these Raptors just seem way too expensive. I just don't see how you can comfortably go to them. I think I don't know, Ochai Agbaji, I might keep in my player pool just because he's been playing really well. Bucks are pretty much just a 3-point funnel right now. They give up no points at the rim and a ton of points. A ton of 3-pointers right now. They're second best rim defense, second worst 3-point defense. That kind of gets me onto a guy like Agbaji. But outside of that, they just look way too expensive. I'm not looking to get to any of these Toronto guys right now. On the Bucks side, I just don't see how you don't play Giannis tonight. I mean, he's hands down the best spend up on the entire slate. Kind of the main reason why I think that. I mean, the Raptors are a big rim funnel, but they just have no rim protectors down low. They're going to put Jakob Poeltl out there for 30+ minutes, and in my opinion, he's one of the worst rim defenders as a center in the league. Kind of, it lines up perfectly because the Raptors are dead last in DVP versus centers this season. So So I mean, I think Brook Lopez probably gets a good amount of ownership tonight. Maybe definitely double digits with no Dame, and he has a really cheap price tag. I would probably look to be underweight just because it's not like having Brook Lopez out there as a center is a lot different than having somebody like Anthony Davis. Like they're not one for one type. Obviously, nobody's like Anthony Davis, but Brook Lopez is just going to be standing on the 3-point line, launching. His rebounding rate has come way down this season. Giannis is going to be eating up all those boards. He does see a little bit of a tick up in usage with no Damian Lillard, but that's we have like a 6-minute sample, so it's not anything to look too into. But I guess like the main thing outside of Giannis being the best play on the slate is how the guard rotation is going to shake out, because there's a couple ways they could do it. I think if Gary Trent Jr. plays, he's probably the most likely to slide in at the point guard spot. They would probably keep Andre Jackson out there. They would have Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Taurean Prince. I would imagine that would be the starting lineup. But if he misses, there's a good chance it could be Ryan Rollins. He's been kind of getting talked up a lot by Doc Rivers in some of these post-game press conferences. I think he's definitely earned some more minutes, and maybe he gets to 20, 25 tonight. He did play some first quarter rotation minutes against the Celtics, which kind of tells me he's like a lot higher on the depth chart than we like kind of come to believe. But yeah, he seems like he would be the most likely to start if Gary Trent Jr. doesn't start. But even if Gary Trent Jr. is in, I mean, he's played really bad and like very bad defense. I don't know if they would want to bring him back out there. I think that it could be Ryan Rollins regardless. But yeah, guys like Pat Connaughton and AJ Green will definitely get some more minutes as well. AJ Green, I didn't even know this. I think his I just heard what his nickname was. I have to look it up once I pause. But yeah, he's going to get some more minutes, and Pat Connaughton will definitely get some more minutes as well. But I think that Ryan Rollins is probably my favorite in terms of the value plays, and then yeah, Giannis, best play on the slate.
Yeah, no, love it. I think the Ryan Rollins decision is going to be something that we think about up until lock. My question would be if Giannis finds himself in this spot where he kind of is a ball handler a little bit, which we've seen in the past. Do you don't think that bumps up Brook a little bit? I mean, he's obviously, we see like Little Neck saying in the chat, he's effectively a stretch 4. I think he's even worse than that. I mean, that guy just never down in the paint. He's always hooking up threes. But at 5,500 for no ownership, pre-show was kind of in the camp that we could see a little bit more ball handling from Giannis, and then that would kind of, make him a little bit of a better play. So that's a curious spot for me, but you kind of talked about it a little bit. Additionally, Bobby Portis at 66, this is more of a GPP, a million lineup type thing. But if we find ourselves in a position where Giannis is ball handling a little bit more, his price is up after, some Bobby Portis type games. But, that would certainly be interesting if you're max entering the $5 or if you will.
I'll piggyback off that because I didn't really touch on that, but I did have that in my notes. I do think that he's a pretty strong GPP option. Just because the same reasons like why Brook Lopez is getting some level of interest. The DVP numbers, it's a pretty wide difference between the first or the dead last team and the second to worst team in terms of DVP. I mean, they're like a solid like 5 points below, allowing 5 points more than the next closest team fantasy points versus center. So yeah, definitely have interest in Portis, and he would definitely see an uptick in usage. But yeah, the Giannis stuff, I just kind of glossed over because I think that it's like pretty clear and obvious that he's the best play. But just to kind of back those numbers up a little bit more, like he's got 37% usage rate, 44% assist percentage, and 23.5% rebounding rate with Dame off the court. So that's kind of like same thing with Jalen Johnson. Like he's doing everything when Damian Lillard is off the court, and like very good shot that he gets a triple double tonight in like the best matchup possible for somebody that's gonna be scoring around the basket.
Yeah, no, love it. I'll be the first person to say I donated to the sports books today. Last night, after a couple of beers, clicked the 6.5 button. I think it's up to 8.5 now. I have to chase those back as we get closer to lock. But hey, I think we're halfway now. It doesn't matter. Everybody, like we said, Steven's always in the chat. Everybody go smash that like button. Like I said, maybe throw in a comment down there, let us know, what's been working for you well in the NBA season, what you're excited about in the NBA Cup tonight. Let's click that and write something in there to help us out with the YouTube algorithm, all that AI stuff. But let's scoot it down here. Jazz and Suns. Well, Suns at Jazz is next. This is a very interesting game for me too. Obviously, we're going to get a lot of ownership here with the KD news, but 5.5 now. 5.5 point spread. What is that? 217? No. Yeah, no. 227.5. Durant out. Nurk is questionable. That's going to be a huge, talking point here, I would assume. Kessler out and Keontae George is probable. What are you thinking here, and what should be a popular game?
Yes, a few things before I break this one down. I found out what AJ Green's nickname was. It's Dairy Bird. So you got Gary Bird on the Hawks, you got Larry Bird, and then you got Dairy Bird. So pretty cool. But yeah, definitely some big injury news in this one. I'll talk about a 2v2 that I was kind of looking, because I did do like some practice builds before jumping on. Because a guy like Melton is going to get a lot of ownership. We'll talk about him in the next game. And yeah, like I do think that Nurkic being out, like if he is out, Plumlee becomes a very good play, because this is a great spot to attack centers. But I was looking at the 2v2, like you could go Brook Lopez and Melton, or if you just go with Goga, lock him up early, and you keep Melton in the USL spot, you'll have that 200 to go up to Plumlee. So that would be like, I would definitely prefer that 2v2 if I knew early that Nurkic was going to miss, but I'll definitely keep that in mind when building tonight. Yeah, I think this is probably the second best game environment on the entire slate tonight in terms of a game that you'd want to get really deep into from a game stack perspective. Obviously, no Kevin Durant, going to condense a lot of the usage around some of these guards on the Sun side, and we'll also bring probably Ryan Dunn back to the starting lineup again. They've been starting him in place for KD, but not really guaranteed to see like 30 plus minutes. So they do have a good amount of depth at that small forward, power forward position. The Jazz getting Keontae George back, but will be without Walker Kessler. So another injury situation to kind of dig through. I kind of think that it makes the most sense to put John Collins out there, but I know that Will Hardy doesn't always do the most obvious stuff, and it could be Drew Eubanks. They did play, Philip Kowski played a little bit of center last game against the Spurs, but could have been matchup dependent because he's a little bit more versatile than Walker Kessler when it comes to defending somebody like Victor Wembanyama. Matchup wise, though, from a macro perspective, one of the best spots for the Suns offensively. The Jazz been one of the best teams to attack for DFS. Seems like for the past 3 years, but this year for sure, they're bottom 7 defensive rating, 6th in pace, bottom 5 3-point defense, and dead last in transition defense. Suns are a slightly below average 3-point defense, but dead last in pick and roll defense. And then offensively, the Suns take the 6th most 3-pointers per game. So really good spot for some of these guards, and just all around for the Phoenix. I love Devin Booker tonight. This is literally like one of the nut matchups for guards. Jazz bottom 4 DVP versus shooting guards. He's pretty much the point guard for this team. Him and Tyus Jones were splitting the lead for touch time, 6.9 minutes, a touch time last game without KD. But Booker had a 46% assist percentage last game without Kevin Durant, double-digit assist in back-to-back games, not shooting the ball all that well. But I mean, that's likely to regress. He's been, shot 3 for 10 last game, but just a couple games ago against the Lakers against the Clippers, shot 5 of 9, was a lot more aggressive in that one. Still took 22 field goal attempts last game, played 43 minutes. I mean, the minutes are sky high for him. The spread is going to be close enough to where we probably get full minutes out of him. I think that he's outside of Giannis, he's got to have some of the highest upside on the entire slate tonight in this matchup, and with the role with no KD. But from a points per dollar perspective, Bradley Beal looks really good at 7K. His rebounding rates came up a little bit with no KD, and just mentioned how great the matchup is for 3-point shooters. I do prefer the true guards like Devin Booker and Tyus Jones a little bit more than Beal, but he makes a ton of sense at a pretty weak position, small forward. But yeah, Tyus Jones, kind of alluded to him. I think that he's just an awesome play tonight, 5.4K. Usage was looking decent last game. The Also, I didn't mention this about Devin Booker, but he had 24 potential assists last game, which is an insanely high number. Tyus Jones kind of ran a little bit colder on assists, only converted 4 of his 9 potential assists. Would expect those numbers to kind of even out a little bit more in favor of Jones than Booker, because he is like the prototypical point guard. But Utah dead last DVP versus point guards. I just think this is a really good spot for Tyus. I'm going to be playing one of Booker or Tyus in most of my lineups. I think that if you don't have Booker, you probably want Tyus, which is how I'm looking at it. But you don't have to be max one. I think they both could easily get there in such a good spot. And then Nurkic, like if he plays, really good matchup for him. Probably going to come in pretty low on just because people are going to be kind of afraid to wait for that news. They're going to play Brook Lopez over him. They're going to play Gogo over him. So I would think that there's a chance he comes in single-digit ownership. But yeah, if he misses, already said, I want to get to Plumlee at 4.4K. He played all the second half minutes pretty much at center, played 26 in that game, put up 30. And, you know, he can do a little bit of everything. He had 6 assists, 11 rebounds, 6 points. I mean, he was a couple points away from a massive game, so would definitely like to get to Plumlee. And then I think Royce O'Neal and Grayson Allen make sense in this one just for the matchup against this three-point funnel defense. Probably prefer Grayson just because he's 3.7K. He got up to 27 minutes last game. We know what kind of ceiling he could have when the shot is going down for him. So I'll probably side with him. I just don't think that they need a guy like Ryan Dunn out there this much. You don't really – like they put him on a guy like Luka. The Jazz don't really have anybody like that. I guess, you know, obviously Laurie is the best offensive weapon on the Jazz, but he's going to play off ball. You could easily put Royce or Grayson Allen or somebody else on Laurie and not have to worry about getting beat too much. So I think that those guys have pretty solid minute ceilings tonight. And then the Jazz, there's really only 2 guys in play. I would say it's Laurie and John Collins. I would probably only be looking to get to Laurie if I have like 3 Suns on the other side, because I just don't know if he provides enough upside at the price tag, the role, all that, to just be a standalone play. I think that I'd rather just kind of bet on the game environment shooting out, which it definitely could. Spread's close enough, decently high enough team total. So Laurie would make sense in game stacks. And then I really just like John Collins regardless. Should get to like 30 minutes. But like he's just been probably the best, definitely the best bench piece for the Jazz all season. The only game that he saw 30 minutes was against Chicago, and he put up 55 DK points in that one. In San Antonio, he put up 36 in 29 minutes. 28 minutes against San Antonio earlier, he put up 36. So he's definitely got a very solid floor-ceiling combo if he gets above 30 minutes. I like him the most. And I guess like if Drew Eubanks starts, you'd probably have some interest in him at 3.5K, but I probably still think that John Collins is the most likely guy to get a bulk of those center minutes.
Yeah, no, you drilled it. You know, I have here in the notes, you only plan marking when you have, you know, 2 Suns. So that was mine. You know, I was thinking more of a Booker and Jones or a Beal and Jones. I'm not finding myself too much on the Grayson Allen. I think at that tag, obviously it's inviting. But if he doesn't hit shots, you know, the upside's not really there. But no, just a little nugget here. You know, I love your take. You know, I don't believe we get any news on Nurk. But I love your little 2v2 we chatted about, or you talked about before we dove into the game. You know, Mason Plumlee did play 26 minutes last game, and Nurk played 15. So he essentially played the first half in kind of his first half run, and Mason Plumlee still saw his 26 minutes, which was good for 30 DraftKings points. So love not hearing anything about it, you know, kind of leaving the ownership a little bit lower than it should be leading on to the end of the night. We have 2 games left. We're kind of flying right through this. Let's set it up nicely so everybody can see it. This is an interesting one for me. I think there's 2 big misprices in this game that I'm going to be, you know, trying to get into 1 or 2 of my 3 lineups. But interested to hear what you have to say about the Mavericks and Warriors matchup in Golden State, 234.5 with a 2.5 point spread.
Yeah, this is a big game. Like this feels. Like I was kind of surprised to see the game total so high, but it does make sense. I mean, these teams, both of them have been playing really great defense lately, but I could definitely see a situation where we get some very heavy minutes from both sides. I know that's kind of been the thing with the Warriors all season long. They're running such a deep rotation. They did go a little bit tighter last game. We saw Wiggins got up to 35. Steph got up to 37. Melton got up to 27. I think Draymond got right near like around 30. And then we know that the main guys for the Mavericks are going to play a ton of minutes. Luka and Kyrie could play 40 tonight. Yeah, I mean, this is probably a game environment I want to get pieces of in game stacks. Like I want to get a couple guys from each side, and just with the way the slate sets up, like small forward, power forward, really, really weak. So you're going to get to a guy like Wiggins. Not a lot of great cheap value right now. So Melton is making a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, I think that Steph is an awesome play tonight. He's only 8.3K, projected to come in, single digit owned right now. Maybe it's probably going to be like 12%, 15%. I think people are smart enough to know that this is too cheap of a tag for Steph, who's he's off the minutes restriction. And yeah, I mean, he's a great play at 8.3K. I mean, they don't really have anybody that could match up with him great defensively. I don't even know who they're going to put on him. It could be Clay, could be Najee Marshall. Yeah, I think Steph is an awesome play at point guard tonight. And then, yeah, I think that like the guys I would be looking to outside of Steph on the Warriors sides would definitely be Wiggins and Melton. I like Wiggins a lot more than I initially anticipated, just because he is questionable, so we got to keep an eye on that news, because that is really big, and that would open up a starting spot likely for, I would imagine it's going to be Moses Moody, but Kuminga would see a big bump in minutes as well. But yeah, he's kind of been the safest non-Steph Curry Warrior that's in terms of a minutes floor. He's seen 31, 35 in the last two games. We know that he's going to be needed for the matchup against Luka. Put up 44 DK points last game. Yeah, it just looks like a really strong value at a really weak position. The case I would make against a guy like D'Anthony Melton, because I do see him getting a good amount of ownership tonight. His double-digit rebounds, 10 rebounds last game, was the second most he's had in his career, and quadruple the most he's had in any game this season. The most he ever had in a game this season was 2. Don't know where that rebound spike came from, but like you kind of see it in like a couple of different guys. Like Norm Powell had a couple random double-digit games rebounding. But yeah, I think people will look at the box score and get very excited. Now, we don't need 40 from a guy like Melton, and even if you took away those rebounds and gave him 2 to 3, he's probably still scoring in the low 30s. So still would be a very strong game from somebody at 4.2K. I'm just probably not as excited about him than the field is. Coming in probably 20 to 30% owned. And then Draymond Green, I think that this is kind of like a spot where you can just be a ball knower, or like IKB it a little bit. But the theory behind a play like Draymond Green is that he gets up for games, like big games, and there's just a lot of narratives for him here. Klay Thompson making his return to Golden State, definitely going to want to get the win there and kind of spoil it for him. He mentioned that the Warriors were terrible in the NBA Cup last season, and they want to play better this year. This is a Western Conference opponent, somebody that they could easily see each other in the playoffs. I think they want to come away with this win. The minutes are starting to come up on all the main guys, so I could see Draymond being a very valuable play at 5.5K, and we know he's got those definitely double upside, but even sometimes the triple-double upside. If he can just make a couple shots, we know he's going to get the boards. The assists will definitely be there. So I think Draymond is a very, very good GPP play tonight in a game stack environment. And then the Mavs side, yeah, it's Luka and Kyrie for sure. Luka looks good. I definitely obviously prefer Giannis. Going to project way better. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm a little bit nervous that I get buried by fading Luka tonight, but I just keep playing him in better matchups and he keeps busting. And I kind of want to just fade him, but I could easily see him putting up a massive game. Just all things I said about the narratives, this being a really big game. But he's shooting the ball horribly right now, shooting 41% from the field, 33% from three-point range, just not very good. The Warriors have a lot of very, very good defenders that can match up with him. So I'm struggling. Would love to hear your thoughts on the Luka versus Kyrie thing. But right now I'm siding with Kyrie. He's looked really good last couple of games, 63 and 52 DK points, back-to-back games, attempted 20-plus shots in half of his games in the last 10 games. Yeah, the price is coming up a little bit, 8.3K, very strong position, point guard, shooting guard, but I think I'm siding with Kyrie tonight if I had to choose one. How are you approaching that one?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I'm all over Kyrie, just over 8,000. He's 8.3 I have. I would just rather pay the 300 more and get Giannis. So I think that's what everybody else is going to think. I think the one highlight I do want to make is I love personally wasting, I'll call it wasting a lineup on Kyrie to Clay. I mean, Clay's 5,100. He's back, back at his old home. They're giving out the captain hats tonight. Obviously, 234 over under. We've seen his upside that we saw in game 1 of the season when he got up to 40 DraftKings points. I think 5,100 to play the minutes in a narrative spot, maybe get an extra look or two. I think, I love pairing those two together and kind of fading the Luka news. And then on the other side, exactly what you said. Curry's too cheap, for 58 and 59 and 2 out of the last 3 on DraftKings, took 13 threes last time out. And Draymond, like you said, if you know ball, I mean, he's going to be hyped up tonight. The only thing I have that I'm nervous about playing him is his quick foul or 2 fouls in the first quarter. But then I could even see him waving off a substitution in the first, all hyped up.
He's getting a technical tonight.
No, I love it. I can't wait. And you already know he's going to get in Clay's face. So yeah. I just can't wait for it. This is going to be such a fun game to watch. And probably, no matter if I have lineups that are in contention or not, I'm still watching this game at night. But to your question, it's Kyrie over Luka. And I'm finding myself playing way too much Klay Thompson and Draymond Green.
There's another interesting 2v2, kind of what I mentioned with the Goga and Plumlee stuff, but Wiggins is definitely going to be hitting a lot of optimals right now, along with Melton, and Klay is 200 cheaper. So that's the 200 you need. You could go from Wiggins to Klay, Melton to Plumlee, and you'd be looking really good right there. I would definitely prefer that 2v2 versus Wiggins and Melton.
No, I love that. Good. We have one game left. We do have a couple of questions in here. First, William was asking anything about Looney, any Looney value for you tonight?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. I wouldn't talk you off of him because they probably will need his size with Derek Lively returning. I forgot to mention that. So he does make some sense to get in there for 15, 16 minutes. Could be pretty valuable because he's been very good as a point per minute guy this season. So yeah, I wouldn't say no to that.
Great. And then the last one, I know we kind of touched it at the beginning of the show, and then we kind of talked about it a little pre-show. But what are your thoughts here as far as, I think the obvious answer is it's going to change team to team. But what do you think about some of these blowouts where there might be a team that's not as interested or a team that really is interested if we find ourselves in a blowout in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, in terms of this question, I could definitely see Portland pulling them because we've seen Chauncey Billups do it before. I don't think that this is a team that really cares at all, but I don't think that I think the Wolves will keep their guys out there. Like, I have a ton of interest in Ant, and I guess it kind of is a good segue into this game. But yeah, I could see them like the serious teams that actually might win are going to keep their guys out there, like as long as the game is like close enough, just because you need that point differential at the end of the end of the group round. So yeah, I could see guys that are teams that are doing the blowing out keep their guys in there for the most part, but teams that are getting blown out, like a Blazers, like what's another team like Atlanta, like I don't think that they're very serious. Like Charlotte's not very serious, so I think those guys could get pulled if it's like a 20-point game with like 6 minutes left or something. Yeah, so hopefully that answers it.
Wonderful. All right, one game left, guys. We made some good time here with 8 games. If you guys want to load up any questions in the chat, we might pick 1 or 2 depending on how long this game takes. But let's scroll down here with our last game. Timberwolves at the Blazers. Like you said, we kind of segued into it over the last question, but 8.5 point spread at a 221.5 point total. I personally not finding much love in this game, but interested to hear what you have to say about Ant.
Yeah, this game I could see getting very overlooked. I don't know. It just feels like a game where nobody's going to be going to, and probably rightfully so. But I do have interest in some of these Timberwolves tonight. Anthony Edwards. I highlighted him on was it the Monday show? I forget which which day it was. I think it might have been sometime last week, but whenever it was the last time that Anthony Edwards faced off against Portland, I highlighted the matchup for him as being one of the best. I mean, it is the best matchup on paper for opposing point guards. The Blazers are dead last in DVP versus shooting guards, allowing the most fantasy points per game to the position, and he put up 57.5 DK points, which was his highest fantasy score all season long. He shot 9 of 15 from 3. So yeah, I like Anthony Edwards is the type of guy that would want to win this, I would imagine. I mean, he's kind of got that Mamba, like Michael Jordan mentality. He plays through injuries all the time. Like I could see him coming out very motivated to win this game in a big way. And he's a very, very good pivot off of Devin Booker in my eyes. Booker's going to be 40+% owned, and Ant is going to be 5% owned. I don't think that Booker is outscoring Anthony Edwards. Whatever the multiplier is of
the metric that you want to call
it.
Yeah,
you guys know what I'm talking about. I don't think that Booker is outscoring him that many times where the ownership discrepancy should be that big. So I'm gonna have some lineups where I just make my best Devin Booker team. Like Tambo talks about this all the time, but you make your best Devin Booker team and you literally just swap Booker to Ant, and you got probably enough to propel your team to the number 1 spot in tournaments, because I think that the lineups kind of build themselves now. Like it's a pretty obvious build. So that's the 1v1 I'm looking for, along with those 2v2s I talked about with the Mason Plumlee stuff. So you have a ton of interest in Anthony Edwards tonight. Randall kind of seems like okay. He's getting a lot more ownership. Really good matchup. The Portland's bottom 4 DVP versus power forwards. I do like the matchup for him. I just don't know if he has the ceiling to really hit in a big way in a tournament, in tournaments on an 8-game slate. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just like fine with Randall. I think he's a totally fine last man in. And then I think the price is way too cheap on a guy like Rudy Gobert. More of a cash game play than anything, because he's kind of the same, like doesn't really have massive upside that we're probably going to need tonight. But he did put up 15 rebounds in 23 minutes versus Portland last game. And Portland is allowing the 5th most blocks per game to opposing big men. So it could be a spot where there's definitely a lot more room for upside than he showed in the last matchup, because he had 15 boards. I think he had 8 points. So he had 2 points away from a double-double. Could have easily been at 40 in that one, which would be very good at 6.4K. So I'm really just looking to those 3 guys on the Wolves. All these secondary pieces, like I don't think that I would really want to go there. I'd rather get into the Dallas and Golden State game with my cheap pieces and just bet on that game environment being a lot better. That's pretty much it. I don't really have much else to say. I think the Blazers are a pretty easy full fade.
Yeah, no, I love what you said. I don't have any big time, highlight plays out of this. You highlighted it. Rudy's too cheap, but we have so many center options tonight. It kind of makes it hard. But I love what you said, building your best, Devin Booker team and then swapping off to Ant. It really becomes that simple. And I'll just real quick, we see it in showdown stuff, in the NBA specifically and in NFL. But when you start playing these smaller tournaments, it makes more sense. It really becomes that simple, where a 4-point swing is all that you need to take your lineup from min cashing to the next level, depending on the tournament. And like you said, with such kind of a forced build tonight, if you will, with the value options and the stud options that we have, I love finding that. I wish Clay was a little bit, or Curry was a little lower. You can kind of put that in that same bracket. As the Booker play, obviously, different positions, but still the ability to do so. But that's really all that I have. That, I think tonight's going to be a night where we like so much stuff later in the slate that it offers us so much late swapping possibility, which was certainly so interesting last night when we had no late swaps, and you forget, how important some of these swaps may be. But other than that, nothing for this game. I'm checking here in the chat. We don't really have any questions. Saw something, and it's kind of a complex question if you really break it down. But we saw, if you wouldn't mind giving us like a 10-20 second thought process on a large field single entry strategy as we round out the show.
I think what I kind of said about the Booker stuff kind of ties into how I would be looking to build a large large field single entry team, because NBA is a lower variance sport. That's why projections are king in this, king in DFS for NBA. So you definitely want to jam in some good chalk value just because it's more likely to hit, and then you kind of find your pivots up top. And yeah, Anthony Edwards would be the pivot for me tonight. That's kind of how I would approach a single entry large field.
No, I love it. Good. All right, guys. Hey, if we haven't smashed the like button yet, we have just under 400 people live. We appreciate the support. But let's find something. We do have a last note before we move out of here. It looks like Ayton is questionable now with a finger. I don't know if you saw that. I'm seeing it here in the chat. I haven't verified it. But do you have any immediate thoughts before we head out of here if he does not play?
Yeah, I don't know. It does get a little bit.
That's my fault. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. I was just checking because I didn't see the Twitter notification, but it literally just came out 4 minutes ago. Yeah, I don't know. They brought back Robert Williams, and they still have Donovan Clingan there. I just don't think Clingan is he's ready to play big minutes. So I would imagine that Time Lord gets a bulk of those minutes. I'm seeing around 30 minutes projected for Ayton. So if you get Time Lord to 25, he would become a very, very good value just because he's always been such a fantasy point per minute stud. So he would probably be my preferred option regardless, if Clingan is starting. Yeah, I don't know. That's tough. I haven't really watched a lot of Portland games just because I never really have too much interest in those. But yeah, I guess Robert Williams would be the guy.
Great. Good. All right, guys. Hey, we appreciate the support. Again, one more time before we head out of here. You guys don't want to be one of the guys watching in the chat that listens to the show and then doesn't have the ability to go into the Discord and continue asking questions, to continuing to talk shop and strategy over the next 2 hours before we lock up. Don't want to miss out on slate plans or any of the other values we have in all the other sports. So if you're not a member yet, everybody go hop in there. Rio, any last words here before we head out of here? Any hot takes? Any real thoughts here as an NBA Cup and as the season started?
No, but my hot take of Peyton Pritchard being the sixth man of the year, I said that first show we did, that's looking pretty good right now. I think he's the favorite to win, and he's been crushing. Yeah, I don't know. My hot take is just build pretty deeply into the Dallas Golden State game, build deeply into the Phoenix and Utah game, and then Giannis has got to be near a lock tonight. That's pretty much it. I like Anthony Edwards a lot though as the pivot off of that shooting guard, point guard range that's getting a lot of ownership.
I love that. I'll throw out a hot take: either Draymond or Clay 7x their value on the slate. Not a super hot take, but I think one of those guys will certainly destroy their tags. But that's it for us. We kept it under an hour, broke down the games. I'll have my core up. You already have your slate plan up. And we look forward to the next couple of hours in the Discord. Appreciate all the support, guys. Good luck in contests, and everybody, let's ship it.